Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. Hopefully, this is going to be a over-hour talk. If not, I hope you take away what you can. Okay. Dear listeners, I encourage you to share your thoughts and ideas in the comments section. And today's episode is going to focus on the notion of humanity. It's a very important idea because we're all human beings, and we have to wonder what sort of image of that humanity is accessible to us. And as I'm speaking, I'm trying to look for the perfect song. So hold on, hold on a second, guys. All right, we found something. All right. Learning to serve. The only humanity here. A very chaotic statement at its core. You see, some statements, they open your eyes to chaos, and they open your eyes to order. My life in the first 25 years of it was in a sort of paradise of order. I found myself to be blessed in that way. But I realized it was a reference point, because those people who experience great order, their chaotic suffering is more intense, because it's as if they're falling down from a higher hierarchical position. You see, the problem with power is that power can dominate the person. Imagine right now, you were extremely powerful, you had everything. You would then give authority to your inner reality. Some human beings, it has always been a dance of the internal and the external from the beginning. There's this beautiful quote by this Indian polymath named Rabindranath Tagore. What does he say? He says, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy." I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and I saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. One thing Rabindranath Tagore doesn't say in that quote is service is the next greater joy of human life. You're going to live for yourself, and then you're going to wonder about the collective that's here. You're going to realize after 4 billion years of evolution, this science project called humanity is in front of us, and it requires being attended to, and nobody gives a shit because everybody on some level is too entertained by their ideological existence behind their eyes. What is important behind our eyes has become what is behind our eyes has become more important than what is in front of our eyes, so it is easy to ignore people. It is easy to ignore life and humanity. And I'm not talking, even though I give these talks in the external reality, I'm not that much of a social butterfly. I am kind of like a friend with the silence of the moment. Therefore, Rabindranath Tagore is saying, you think life's point is joy. You think hedonism is correct. All the nihilists who've concluded hedonism to be the only thing to do here, I'm telling you, you think it is joy. But you're going to realize joy has different quantities. And it has to do with like the quantity and quality of the joy you experience in your life. When you realize most people, their inner reality needs to be attended to, for example, women, of course, you have to, who was it? I think it was Chris Rock. He said something like, you gotta, just like you water a rose, you gotta compliment women. And what that means is beauty is something that from the external, it requires acknowledgement of the inner. What that means is, for me personally in my life, I have loved the people who were able to see my mind more than, not more than me, but they could see my mind was here. There's so many people I have spoken to, it doesn't matter if I live or die or whatever happens, it's as if their mind never saw me in the first place. And so that is the nature of human beings. Our inner reality is more complex than the outer because it includes outer phenomena, outer sensory data, plus imagination and whatever memory coagulates next. In order to serve humanity, we got to first understand how the human being can serve himself. If you consider there to be an internal and external dimension, this is Mr. Within's kind of great thing that he's saying to the world he knows. You must learn to acknowledge these two dimensions. They don't teach it into children, so it gets bottled up in one and it becomes the confusion of the lifetime. Are we objective beings? Are we subjective beings? Or are we simultaneously present in a moment that holds both attributes? It is the kind of testament of the intelligence and how much objectivity can be objectivity and how much subjectivity can be where it is. You see, the mind and the body, you can see them to be in different rooms, or you can see them to be in the same room. The mystics, the spiritual people, they tend to see themselves inside a room that is superior to their body. This is what religion gave that the intellect could not give. If the intellect and imagine divinity, the divine will, moves the world, the free will moves the world you can see. That is the difference. And we can, to be honest, it's a flip coin. It's a 50-50 chance. Pretty much when I see theists and atheists debate, when the people clap, I'm like, what the hell are people clapping for? You know, it's because it's a 50-50. We don't know. And that is where our truth seems to be limited. The limitations of your intelligence are the I don't know moments. And I'm telling you, the only way I feel like I have been able to even speak about these is because I was stuck in a weird war. It's as if I was very passive, very pacifist to my inner reality. What that means is it didn't matter if I imagined the phenomena or it was imagined by others. I didn't care for language because I didn't identify it, because simply I think I retained a conscious memory in my childhood prior to speech. That means I remember being alive in a moment as a moment of being prior to learning language as a kid. I have a conscious memory before I learned language. And before I learned language, I was not defined by my language. So what that means is I had not sworn allegiance to any sort of cultural program subconsciously. Even currently as I sit now, I feel more a citizen of the cosmos than the citizen of a country, nation, culture. So like these programs, they appear in the environment. When I'm in Iran, I feel Iranian. When I'm in Canada, I feel Canadian. It's like, it literally has to do with what the voice of the environment. Every environment has a voice that is being whispered in the ears of your subconscious. If you can hear that voice, you save yourself from suffering. Because suffering is something intense. It is, in some sense, the purpose of human life. No, if you ask why your ancestors lived, is because they did not give in to suffering, as if some force in nature was like, human being, I'm gonna destroy you. And then there was some force in the human being. He's like, good luck, buddy. It's like, good luck, forces of nature trying to steal my eternity away. You know. For me, I entertain reality. And when I entertain reality, Aristotle has one of the most incredible. Any school that does not have this Aristotle quote written on their walls is not a school, I consider. This Aristotle quote says, it is the sign of an educated mind to entertain an ideal without accepting it. That is life, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to accept, you don't have to respond to everything or every phenomena. Phenomena changes as much as the world does. So in some sense, the arrogance and the psychological state of human beings, it is not as advanced as it could be, because it is being defined in some sense by external phenomena as the priority. What if the way you are seeing matter is not material? What if there is a mind behind your eyes that speaks in ways that is not found in the limits of our language? I speak about a linguistic simulation. Pretty much, in order for you to be a social creature, you have to step into the linguistic simulation and step into the linguistic realm. And what that means is no longer your intelligence alone is enough in society. A social creature cannot survive unless it gets access to data that it does not have access to. I am telling you, we are data processing creatures. Now, in regards to the title I remembered right now, to be honest, this is not the title I wanted for this picture. But I guess I'll write the title down here in case I might give another talk. God, this keyboard doesn't work. Okay. Anyways, I wanted to give a talk on some, in some degree. I guess it fits into the context of this one. I wanted to free God from man. And then I wanted to free man from God. And then I wanted to tell the world, after you have reached your ultimate solution, what will you do next? After you have walked in the pure lands as an honest being, what next? And you will realize the purpose lies in the eyes of the other that requires to reach the top of the mountain. Pretty much, ladies and gentlemen, the only reason I personally at Mr.Within finds that my voice exists is in some sense in the moral of this story, because I found there came a moment in my life I went hyper nihilistic. When I say hyper nihilistic, that means I even saw the concept of emptiness to be empty. Pretty much this humanity that is here stands beyond conception. It stands beyond concepts. Literally, we can't just help it through conceivable power. We require the intellect to open its horizon. Fundamentally, we see the power in religion. And when I kind of looked at the secular society's kind of mind and the religious society, Abrahamic society's kind of mind, and I wondered how their stories of life would integrate enough to be some sort of level of advanced world peace. And I realized the only way is that people have to wake up from the story world. They have to wake up from storyland. Storyland is to be honest, it is the rebellion, inner rebellion. Usually history has required external rebellion. We've had tyrants and literally people were like, yo, get off that chair, you know? There's the story of royalty is an excellent one to study. I find pretty much intelligence comes down to the various subjective structures your free will animates in the moment. So for example, when someone hears a lecturer speak, whenever I hear Jordan Peterson speak, he's tapped into this. This is why this dude can endlessly talk. It's like you tap into it, you suddenly see there is a sort of subjective landscape underneath every objective idea. That means objects don't relate to one another. You know, it's like we don't have to just study the relationship of the electron with the nucleus. Do you see? With the proton and neutron, you know? And so, I think I went a bit cellular there. But anyways, like, what I'm trying to say is that it's not about how your hand relates to your brain or your voice box relates to your brain. It has to do with how the brain relates to the idea of the brain. And when you see the unknown in the crevice of your knowledge, that is a chaotic yet liberating moment. Let me tell you what kind of how chaotic enlightenment could be. There's a kid, young kid, who literally the grandparent went to answer a phone call or something, and the young kid takes the knife on the fruit table and is like trying to cut fruit with a knife. The grandparent comes back, sees this young kid holding the knife, and immediately takes the knife away. In some strange way, if the kid was older, the parent would be taking it away with the intensity of slapping the knife out of the kid's hand, the grandparent. So what I'm trying to say is like, that is the sort of liberating chaos that you find. Because I have shouted at the sky many times. I have shouted at the sky so many times, shouting, why are my eyes here? I have asked that. Those are the chaotic, only a chaotic level of philosophical beauty that subjectively you get access to when you're alone with the world. Not a lot of people can truly be alone in this world because it will destroy them. It will destroy their ego, and they will feel they have strayed too far from their destiny. There's two traps in philosophy, as Mr. Within conceives it. There is the enlightenment trap, and there is the nihilistic trap. These are the extremes of life. So it doesn't matter if you were a young kid born in this world, or if you were an extraterrestrial who landed. This is what I would tell you is going on this planet. Eyes have opened. These eyes have a subjective component and an objective component, which means the heartbeat is not just keeping your physical body alive, it is keeping your ideology alive, your mind alive, your attention to thought alive. That is the power of the heartbeat. So there is a sort of intersection of the objective intelligence with the subjective intelligence. Now, the question of the soul has only come into our vicinity simply because we're asking, is the objective intelligence steering physical reality, or is it in some sense, subjective intelligence that is steering physical reality? Is matter moving thought, or is thought moving matter? If thought moves matter, we are automatically opened up to the unknown spectrum of metaphysics. What that means is, it's like, it's whether religion claims the concept of divinity first or not, it's like there is something happening uniquely. Okay, we are energetic beings in fields of intelligence. As we step beyond our particular sight, we find in some sense our collective vision. You see, when you find the collective vision, if you get one glimpse of the true potential of intelligence, not the human brain, of intelligence as a moment of being, it's as if you will laugh because you will realize in every moment of your life that you have chosen to be a body that is howling the idea of a brain around. You suddenly see, no, you are a mind projecting a body instantaneously. That means it's not just that you are a physical being existing right now, your mind is instantaneously changing all the time, and therefore we are conscious of change. This conscious of change, we identify with the physical reality being changed. So what that means is the mind is moving faster than the physical body, therefore the physical body seems to be animating. That means we are conscious of a level of subjective change superior to objective change, therefore implying the presence of the unknown intelligence dimension. An unknown intelligent dimension. And these dimensions are worth humanity's exploration. That is the only thing Mr. Within is saying to civilization. I am not asking you to get change. I am not asking you to get enlightened. I am asking you, dear human being, you have one lifetime. Wonder about what you truly saw. And when you live for your true vision, oh my God, you will forget the word karma ever existed, because destiny has become your eyes. And then it's like, it doesn't matter what you say. The words are there before you say them. It doesn't matter if you live or die. Intelligence lives on. We are just a part of the cosmos that's identifying with sound, moving faster than objective reality. It's like, it's truly chaotic but fascinating. We have to protect this illusion. What George Orwell did was realize that the chaos and order are just kids in empty space. You can't punish the bully. You cannot punish the victim, and you cannot punish the bullying force. You cannot fight chaos. If you notice, you fight chaos, chaos is won because it conquered you. Literally, the disharmony in one human being affects the harmony of everyone else. And that is the tragedy. We have universal human declaration of human rights. It's like, I don't understand how nations are joining the UN if they are not accepting the declaration of human rights, because free speech means free mind. If you don't have a free mind, you can't have free speech. You'll be limited. And so Mr. Within is saying to every goddamn scholar in this world, any person who gives a shit about the education of the civilization in the future, we have to quickly acknowledge the apocalypse that is hitting our academic systems. It is the apocalypse of the subjective thinker's freedom. This apocalyptic notion, I cannot tell you, it's like, I sometimes laugh. I see scientists being mighty, but I've also seen my younger cousins play with toys. You know, I have realized the value is not in the image. We are making images more important than reality, so we feel good about our thoughts, yet our thoughts don't have practical efficiency to the external world. We are wasting our lives cowering away in our inner realities because we have to have what we see be true all the time. What is this madness? Who told us our eyes see it all? And if your eyes don't see it all, you will care for the collective vision. This is the evolution of the greater mind. This is what Socrates would be jealous of modern philosophers because of what we have access to now, the collective vision. And it starts as rivers, these inner renaissances, where right now, you know, it's like this is like a prime example. Because we're different people, we cannot just have our lives be dictated by personal beliefs. Because there is 8 billion, not just physical atomic bodies, biological beings, there is the potential. I say potential. That means it's like your mind is something you have to choose to activate, or it doesn't happen for you. Or the unknown becomes lifeless as it always was. It's as if the dude was looking at a wall and he's like, the existence is lifeless. And then he put a painting and he's like, oh, no, there's life there. And so it's like that guy, for me, it's like the silly, humble guy. The silly, humble guy gets everywhere. It's like a glitch in the system. God's like, all right, this kid's so silly that it's like, all right, what's the silliest thing that could happen to him, you know, if he goes to heaven? It's like, you trust me, it's a relationship of the mind. Our minds are like, they're waiting. Your mind is waiting for you to befriend it. What that means is, I'm telling you, there's intelligence in other dimensions, in an onion style of multidimensionality. Carl Jung had this hidden desire, which I don't think it's ever written in his writings, but I could see it, because sometimes I can tell how much of the thinking of a philosopher was inspired by its time. You see, the intellect is required for cultural evolution, but in some sense, the consciousness, questions and ideas upon the consciousness of the being, about the true, like the body requires the intellect, the mind requires the soul. That means it's like the intellect asking itself how it's here and seeing it's just here. An instantaneous answer is considered, therefore the primal moment where cause and effect are observed as equal faculties. To be honest, we are piloting our attention through conscious moments into fields of intelligence which are divided between the known and the unknown. And if we don't care about the unknown, the purpose of our knowledge is hollow. It's as if I don't care if a professor writes a book that doesn't have a contributing idea to the collective of our civilization, then it's like, what are you doing? You know? To be honest, academia, it's very simple, guys. You gotta, this is how we find the solution to the civilization. It's strange, but this is the only way. We have to ask ourselves, if we wanted to conquer the world, how would we do that? We would first have to decide upon the type of world we're conquering. Then we would see we don't have enough information, so we have to first see the world. So the evil man or the good guy, whoever the fuck, whichever kind of guy, this being, he has to be introduced to a world that is happening in order to be able to do something about it. What that means is, fundamentally, in the psychology of the superhero and in the psychology of the villain, they both had to acknowledge a world before they existed in. And that world is beyond them, therefore they are childish to history. In accordance to how history is lived comes the maturity of the mind of the warrior. The warrior nowadays is not an external warrior. We don't need barbarians in the streets. We need the challenging of minds. We need a resurrection of an archaic effort, not shape, an archaic effort in modern times. What that means is, we are all lions acting like sheep, and when the civilization roars, we will become galactic bound. We are right now not an advanced civilization because we have no clue. We don't know what's happening outside. We think it's all emptiness. Look at our arrogance. We believed emptiness when there is something here to ask the question. How dare we deny? How dare we deny the position of consciousness? It's a failure of the intellect to see something empty before it's full. So when the era, right now we're in the era of ideal worship, story worship, and I have to be playful. What I mean by that is that if somebody asked, to be honest, my actual opinion on what the civilization should do now, I would say it's fun and games. The intellect of our civilization is 8 years old. Literally, our collective vision is in the eyes of a child. You could be 100-year-old man, but your civilization, what we call humanity, is behaving like an 8-year-old kid. It is behaving like a kid that has thought what it sees is the only truth. As one goes within, they come to their presence. Their presence could not be what they expect. Your presence could make you ashamed. I have had moments where my mind, since childhood, it was open to infinite abstraction, but it was open to it geometrically. I later on understood I had learned a language prior to the mathematical language. I can't say prior to mathematical language. Let me not say that too soon. But it felt prior to any language I learned as a being. I had an innate intuitive knowing. It's as if I tell you right now, if you knew German, you could say a sentence in German. You literally have the knowing. If you wanted to say a sentence in German, you could, for example, say a sentence in German. You know? For example, if I was to say a sentence in German, it would just be the word gut and then dot. The shortest sentence, German sentence ever, you know. There's this poet named Rumi. He says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a place. I will meet you there. And so casually he says, when the soul sits on that grassland, the world is too full to talk about. Literally, you will reach a state of mind where your knowledge doesn't need to be externalized. Therefore, your intelligence begins cultivating the individuality, inner individuality of your free will. Pretty much, it doesn't matter if it's whatever kind of identity you associate with. Primarily, we're in a changing world, and because we're in a changing world, we cannot be oblivious to the world. But when we pay attention to the world, we tend to see we are bound to these natural movements, natural consequences, where in nature's movement we are bound to it in the sense that the person cannot escape time. Time is the true conqueror. Anybody who goes against time in some sense is like, you're not ready to grow. Your eyes are not meant to be the same, they are meant to change. That is the point of free will, to have access to a world of change, and it has attained the sophistication of being a character. And because you can be a character, that means you can have characteristics, like literally a video game. In a video game where you can change the outfit of the person, of the character, you can change the way your mind shines a light upon who you are. For me, at first, I could say very confidently, until 2011, I was a creature that didn't know I was not a thought. I felt I was a thought. Literally, I felt what I saw was the only thing, and so I had what many people experience, as you say, it's karmic agitation. It's as if the world is making you angry, you know? And it's made, when the more anger you have, you want to retaliate. So I find that this is the profound thing. I find that women should be grateful that they're women, because the male archetype starts with the arrogance of the masculine position being dominant. Because it starts with domination. Domination means the first step. The first step means confrontation. Confrontation means multiple dimensions must be considered. And eventually you see, because we're human beings struggling for every breath, that in every struggle the ultimate performance is there. So the question becomes, the person who's wondering about how to access, like they say, human beings use 12% of their brain. What about the rest? You know, what do we do with the, you know, that 88% of intelligence? Well, let me tell you how you access it. It has to start with the framework of the limitations of your attention. If I ask you, is your attention a physical thing? What would you say? If you say yes, I would clap for you. If you say no, I would clap for you. If you say I don't know, I will have tears of joy in my eye, because you have become my teacher. Do you see, all worlds evolve? Intellect, the intellectual game is pretty much positioning. It's juggling. It's subjective juggling. Literally, when you understand the texture of your attention as your mind, it's like you can move not just as your physical body. What if Mr. Within is saying to you, dear human being, the words human and being, they refer to two different types of intelligence. The human one is based on design. Any person who studies design will learn all languages. You know, geometry can be considered a sacred language, because it is a way of the abstract infinity of man's imagination to externalize. So geometry is a language, but it's a language for the presence of man existentially. So it's not per se, its poetry is in its infinitude, you see. There's this incredible story of this ancient story, mystical story, where there's this man who's this honest person who's lived an honest life. He suddenly finds himself facing a tiger. And it's like literally that moment where this guy is like, shit, this tiger has known I fear it, so it's gonna chase me. And so the guy realizes he cannot out alpha the tiger. So he starts running, and he runs to a point where he sees he took a misdirection, and he's like, oh man, what is this, a comedy to my death? And so he suddenly, the guy sees he's at the edge of a cliff, but he sees there's this kind of tree winds, like remnants of these tree winds that are kind of going down. So he's like, okay, there's no way this tiger's gonna climb down this stuff, right? So he climbs down this kind of thing until the tiger goes away. So he's literally holding on to these kind of like roots of a tree as he's like waiting for this tiger to leave him. To his surprise, he sees a black and white mouse. He's like, what the hell? There's mouses in cliffs? Like, and this black and white mouse come out and start chewing exactly the branch that this guy is on. It's as if the chaos and the order of the world are also chasing him like the tiger, you know? And so the man is suddenly realizing, holy shit, it's like, this is the moment he's gonna die, you know? And he's like, wow, I lived such an honest life. My kids and family, they're never gonna know what happened, you know? And suddenly in that moment, he sees a strawberry. He sees strawberry, right? And he sees like, whoa, there's strawberries here. And he eats that strawberry, and it's the most beautiful strawberry he's ever tasted. And he suddenly smiles, and he's like, this is the most beautiful moment of my life. And the vines get cut. And so that's the kind of notion, ladies and gentlemen, that when we acknowledge our temporary nature, that's only when you care and respect people, not because of how strong they are. If whoever seeks a strong leader, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot if you have, because you're worshiping a machine based on one program, eat. Literally, there's nothing more masculine than consumption, you know? You eat something, you know, you conquer it. You devour it. And I have to say, you know, to like as if writing a letter to humanity, there is evil around. It's just evil and good. They're both confused, so civilization strangely is happening relatively peacefully. We have to create a world where the world also gives a shit about the human being. Right? So literally systems of society and government, I don't know who you are, who's in power, whoever you are, if you're a leader of a country, like what the fuck, man? Make the smarter decision. The collective community can give access to minds of people. Literally imagine whenever you saw that poverty commercial on TV and you see that child suffering, you know, literally it's as if a part of you your heart starts crying. I've had moments where my heart has cried because it's like tears of anguish, you know. I've experienced it a few times in my life, of course. These tears of anguish are ones where it's the failure of the objective free will and the subjective free will to do anything about how the world is turning next. You literally, you honestly fought your enemy, but your enemy ended up winning. And so what do? You go and buy strawberries. It's like, imagine after the world heard a Mr.Within talk, the sales of strawberries went off the chain, you know? I want you to see that life is an image. But it is an image that is projected by yourself, and that self is to an image. And fundamentally, we are image processing creatures. That is how our mind gets excited when it can see a part of the world move that it's not its own creation. Because let me tell you, I think by the age of 12, every child will to some degree have conclusions upon what it means to be in the world. And at that age, the child will have an arrogant confusion. That means an arrogant 12-year-old is healthy. And a 12-year-old that isn't arrogant, that is strange. The parents should wonder why. Why the child is not arrogant. Does the child not have an awareness to the structures of the various systems that are functioning in civilization? What is the notion of the law of nature? That is what Mr. Within is asking people. Do we care that there is a natural world here that's just becoming strangely, incredibly too soon technological, to a point that it's like there's a sort of technological fetishism going on? You know, that means what that means is that you see technology authentically used is a blessing, unauthentically used is in some sense chaos. And to be honest, the wise man takes a vow in a strange way to have all chaos be limited to the interior reality. What that means is when you get angry at someone, that anger remains in your subjective realm, in your inner reality. That's a way of saying you hold your hand before it moves. The soul stops the mind. I've literally had certain moments my mind has been so dysfunctional, so disharmonious. I was so ignorant to my intuition that literally I arrived in a moment where it was so chaotic that literally my behaviors, literally the past, it's like when the present fails to meet the force of the future, it gets help from its past. So what that means is at some point in the psychology of the inner turmoils of the human being, there is a war between the past and future to define the present moment. This war will only stop if the character in the game where the world is centered around wakes up. How does it wake up? Is it like some sort of Neo-Matrix kind of waking up? If the Matrix was language, where it was made of code, that the world of code is where the future of the civilization's solutions can be found. It's like we need philosophers to learn from warriors. It's as if the greatest philosopher, you know, he went to a warlord, and he's like, "Warlord, you are wiser than me and you must teach me." And the warlord was, "You are the greatest philosopher of our land. You are saying I am wise. Why are you saying I am wise? I'm a warlord. My nature is to destroy and conquer." And the philosopher says, I want to learn from the kind of chaos you are and the kind of order you see. Because the order of a mechanical life is the death of the mind. Your mind will rage. Just like how Dylan Thomas, his last words to his father was, "Do not go," his father was dying, and he's like, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." Is that not true power? He says rage, rage against the dying of the light. Literally, you care for the life that's here and everything works out. To be honest, the self-help industry is strange. I find that there needs to occur a sort of ideological revolution in the concept of self-help. People have to really wonder, can other people help you? Can other people help you when who you think you are is something only you can see? Trust me, it's like what I'm saying isn't new. It's something that the ancient world knew, just the modern world is forgetting, but it will always have. We have to rekindle a new spirit, a new attitude towards ideology. You see, it's like many people are saying that, for example, I saw this and I was like, my opinions have, let me tell you. The modern culture, for example, in texting, the way they use words has become more emotionally oriented rather than language and structure oriented. In the TV show Californication, in 2011, I was obsessed with that show. And you must study the mind that is here once, and everything aligns. I find that most people, they're inspired by their greater self. The common man who goes to work, that person, in some sense, how can I tell you? It's like you're literally working for your future, working physically for your future. Now the issue is the system you're working in is not the best system. It is chained down. It's as if there is a super advanced computer called society, yet this computer, it's as if the greatest aspects of it are shut down. We have to rekindle a new movement in the imagination of the future generations. And the only way this can happen is there needs to be an inner renaissance. Literally, human beings, they should have, I call this the multidimensional renaissance. It's when 8 billion people realize the value of sharing their inner realities to see the potential of the efficient vision of civilization. Because let me tell you, I realized if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to be inspired by fear and desire. So your life will become an unconscious program regardless of how you look at it. Only when you are inspired by a possibility of an efficiency that is possible. Literally, it's like you won't attempt anything that you feel does not echo longer than you. This is why I only pick up the pen when I feel what I'm writing down, the whole cosmos will see. It is kind of like economy has made financial survival a war. And that war is as tragic as the wars back in the day where people actually had to go to war. And when they went to war, it was as if it didn't matter if the guy was an artist, an inventor, a painter, a philosopher, an engineer, or whatever. They all had to go and shoot metal at a certain enemy. You can say war is a sort of suicidal attempt of humanity. It is a very strange psychology to have, because we have to, the way people learn and communicate is that they're actually projecting who they think they see. Right now, as I'm saying these words, the way I say these words, they originate from certain experiences I've had, which are not perhaps accessible to you in your conscious mind. You see? And so what that means is the words you hear from me are reflections of what happens. As if, imagine your mind is a pond, still pond, and these words that you're hearing, it's like me throwing these rocks, and how your mind ripples is how your mind ripples. So it's this awareness of the self. This awareness of the self, eventually it has two places to go. Either we give it physical reasoning, a physical cause, or we give it a non-physical cause. If we were to attempt a non-physical cause, there's a kind of challenge that arises. Because is this cause purely empty? Could emptiness just be the one cause? Or in some sense, is it the infinite, endless movement of abstraction and imagination? Right? So we're left in this place because Carl Jung had to be very careful. When he knew, Carl Jung tapped into something so important that this man had to be very careful how he introduced it to the world, and he did an excellent job. I have so much respect for Carl Jung, even though I have no realistic way to fathom his personality. I mean, I've seen a certain video of him on YouTube, but I don't know. It's like sometimes the camera finds the greatest inventors years after their invention. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm definitely probably with the same wallpaper gonna share another talk in relation to this. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Much blessings and namaste. Let me just double check if somebody said something in the live stream. Okay, God bless. What greater liberation could there be than the greatest opportunity and evolution of the mind to be accessible to the creature? Can we truly evolve from just creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere? And what will we evolve to? What sort of subjective attempts to explore the unknown has our civilization made? So when we ask the right questions, we have to literally we have to go on the journey of acknowledging a world with greater values. So I'm not saying that life is meaningless, but I'm saying its meaning is self-projected, and yet that self has to learn. So the ability of your intelligence is not just you being the ultimate position of power, but you to realize that there's a co-intelligence, co-creation. It's as if creation, when it has evolved to the sophistication of the human being, the Homo sapien, it's like it has an evolutionary position where it has an opportunity. Literally, the purpose of your biological evolution is to literally live your design. That's it. You gotta live your life, believe it or not. Much blessings and namaste.